The woke culture is getting too popular that people are escaping the woke culture. The video about to check out is titled Go to Countries to Avoid Woke Culture. Let's check it out.
Root in many Western cultures, and it's caused even people in the left wing to say this is just too much. And so today I'm going to share with you countries where you can go to avoid wokeism.
Tell us, in case I need to run.
Hi, I'm Andrew Henderson. This is Nomad Capitalist, where we help 7- and 8-figure entrepreneurs and investors legally go where you're treated best. You can learn more at nomadcapitalist.com. And so people have been asking me about how do I avoid woke culture. People in the United States, people in other Western countries are saying, I don't entirely recognize my country anymore. I don't feel comfortable here. I don't like the way the country is going. Now, I'm not saying I agree with everyone's reasons for that, but I'm happy to serve them because, listen, I was the original person who didn't feel comfortable living in the United States, and so I know what it's like. And so if you look at the news recently, you'll see, for example, there was an election in Virginia, and you had some of the political pundits come out and say, how did this Republican win a state that Joe Biden won just a year ago? Well, it's all this wokeism. People on the left are saying that. Bill Maher
Getting
is
too much for everybody.
Constantly talking about stop with the wokeism. No, silence is not violence. Violence is violence. And again, I don't agree with everything Bill Maher says, but you have the people on the left wing who are coming out and who are saying, like, guys, this is a little bit too much. Now, there's a lot of terms that are thrown out back and forth at people. Obviously, I spend time in countries that are Muslim majority countries. I own property in a couple of them. I have a business in one of them. I employ people in one of them. People in the United States look at these so-called, these migrant caravans coming into the country. I enjoy spending time in Mexico. I think Mexico is a fantastic country and wealthier than a lot of people think it is. Has one of the best passports, quite frankly, in the world that's not tethered to, the English-speaking countries of the European Union. There are some countries in Central America that, quite frankly, offer a lot of personal freedom right now. And so I look at it from a different perspective than maybe some people who say the United States is the best place in the world to be, or fill the blank if your country is the best place to be. Certainly, I don't have some of those biases in that, all things being equal, would rather live in Mexico than the United States. I'd rather live in Malaysia than the United States, and that makes me perhaps different. But I do watch television around the world, including in the U.S. I see clips, I see interviews, I see punditry, and I also see the bubble, where, as I've said before, if you turn on the news in the U.S., having someone, talk from Canada or from the U.K. is like the international perspective. And so where do you go to avoid wokeism? Which perhaps to many people seems pervasive, the same way people say tyranny is pervasive and all the other things that you're trying to get away from are pervasive, which is not true. Where do you go to avoid wokeism? Practically anywhere outside of your Western bubble, quite frankly.
Come to Africa, guys. Come to Nigeria.
In the same way that I've been traveling very freely around the world over the last year and change, with not a lot of red tape, staying healthy. I think that countries that are open for business are much less likely to be woke. And so there's an interesting piece I saw recently where someone talked about the way that the U.S. economy is going. The median U.S. income now is something like $34,000. Legacy brand countries are eventually going to have some kind of reckoning where $34,000 in the United States, that's not really a lot of money. And if you continue on that trend, you're not...
I heard it was 72,000 at some point. Is it 34? Is it for real?
You're not able to say that you're really that wealthy of a country anymore. And so what's interesting about countries like the United States is you have this kind of wokeism, but yet you have things getting worse and worse. Now, I'm not talking about the economic wokeism that we often talk about, where people are at your throat to pay your fair share, even though you pay 100 times or 1,000 times as much as they do. But I'm talking about the fact that people, I suppose there are perhaps, there's some grievances that people have. Obviously, I think we all believe people should be treated fairly. People should be left alone to live their lives. I'm not in favor of attacking people or belittling people. If anything, I've got a global perspective that says, let's just all live in peace.
Right.
And obviously, I think we all want that to be the case. But some of this stuff just seems like really over the top. And if you're in a country that kind of realizes, maybe we're not the richest country in the world, I think you have a lot less of that. And, there's comedians that talked about this over the years. Not a lot of peanut allergies in a lot of parts of the world. It seems like when you think that you're a wealthy country, you start to invent new things to be upset about. Now, I run a business. I'm constantly focusing, and I just did performance reviews with some of my key team members. And I said, listen, here's the things you did great, but I really want to spend most of my time focusing on things that we can improve upon because I want to support you to be better.
Yeah.
That's how I operate in my own life. I'm always looking to be better. And so I'm all for personal improvement. I'm all for saying, hey, what's wrong with our country? Let's fix it. But seems like a lot more issues in Western countries that really don't exist anywhere else. People aren't really that concerned about. And so let me just give you an example. There was a recent headline from Russia where Vladimir Putin, I don't know Putin. I don't like Putin. I don't love Putin. I don't know. But Putin said, listen, if you're teaching your children that they can choose their gender, he said something like that's almost like a human rights atrocity. That's what he said. There was a commercial.
You see the thing about Putin and Donald Trump? You don't have to like them. You don't have to like them. But sometimes they say things and you're like, ooh, that one I agree with.
In Russia, I remember Mrs. H showing me this a couple of years ago. I think it was Reebok shoe company. They took an ad campaign that worked in the West and targeted it at women in Russia. And they said some pretty
weird stuff,
off-color stuff, as I recall. And it was this thing like, don't let men get in your way, knock them down, like, you're the best.
Women's right.
Men. And it got like 88% downvotes. They had to take some of it down because nobody, these Russian women, are like, we don't want to see this nonsense.
Yeah.
And so I think that understanding that different countries operate differently. Legacy brands have a certain, you could call it arrogance, you could call it confidence, you can call it whatever, that, hey, we've already made it, so now we can focus on stuff that maybe other countries don't find as important, even though the reality is the fundamentals of countries like the United States aren't nearly as strong economically as many people want you to think, and you're seeing that in play right now. But people come to our channel. People have been critical of me for saying, go date, go get married if you want. And they say, no, it's a terrible deal. But they fail to see that what happens in the United States doesn't happen. Go to Russia, where I've talked to people, and they tell me stories, women tell me stories where it's like, I went out on a date. It was in the middle of winter. It was negative 1,000 degrees. And he said, let's go for a walk in the park. And then we would go for a walk in the park. And he would stop at the McDonald's and walk in and get himself a sandwich, eat the sandwich, and then come out and we would keep walking. I didn't get me a sandwich. I mean, I think back to my radio days in Los Angeles and Tom Likas, Likas 101. Don't spend more than 40 rubles on a date, son. 0 is optimum. I mean, this takes it to a whole new level. And so you kind of have the reverse problem in some of these countries. I mean, my goodness, buy the girl a sandwich. Come in from the cold. And I think people who are living in the West think like everything's like our country. You can't entirely blame them if they haven't traveled. But, I was just talking to a friend of mine here in Colombia the other day, and we were talking about this very topic. He said, listen, people here, number one, they don't really want to get into this thing. This wokeism. He says, we have bigger problems. They realize we have bigger problems. And they said, people just want to live their lives.
Right.
Now, there are some people, I have 1 or 2 Colombian friends who don't live in Colombia, who came from very conservative places, and they are very rebellious in terms of what the Colombian culture is. They are very woke, and that's why they don't live where they're from anymore. And listen, I can understand that too, because I've pushed back on some of the things from where I'm from. But, I think most countries in the world, they have bigger issues. I also think in many countries in the world, men want to be men, women want to be women. One thing I found interesting that, for people who pick on me, I love going to Montenegro. And you get in a taxi from the airport in Montenegro. You get these taxi drivers that are so muscular. I mean, literally, some of these guys can't even fit in the driver's seat. They're fat. They're just, the muscle is so powerful. And then you're driving in the street. This guy's wedged into this little taxi driver's seat. And the guy's listening to whatever the Montenegrin equivalent of Selena is. Like some syrupy pop music. And they're fully confident. These guys aren't taking any crap from anyone. It's not like, oh, these guys are so unmasculine. You do that in the United States, a lot of people are going to call you out. I mean, what do you listen to this? Why don't you listen to some heavy metal? Because I think in a lot of countries, people are confident in who they are.
Exactly. You don't need music.
Men into where they can say, listen, if I want to listen to a syrupy pop song, I will. And then I'll go to the gym and bench press to infinity. And so Latin America, Eastern Europe in particular, I think are not in this. And I will say, I won't call Georgia woke, but I will say there are people there who do want to be a bit more European, more than I would see in Serbia, more than I would see in Montenegro, more than I would see in Armenia, which is more Russian aligned. Some of these countries that are really eager to be part of the West, you do have more of that Western influence that rubs off. I don't know that it's to the extent that it is in the United States, but certainly that is an issue that comes up. And so, to me, this is not even a difficult question. People they ask me like breathlessly, like, how do I avoid some of these things that are happening
So I saw a video recently where Americans are leaving America because of the woke culture to go live in Russia. Contrary to what most people are saying about Russia and about Vladimir Putin, Americans are still leaving America to go live in Russia because of the woke community. So look at what is going on.
They live.
Or the woke culture.
My answer is pick from the buffet. There's plenty of places to go where people are much more old school. Now, some of these things certainly do spread. You have Western media that penetrates the entire world. But I think that you still have plenty of cultures where people say, you know what, we like our culture. We like how we operate. You look at a place like Serbia, I don't think Serbia wants to change to adapt to the West. I don't think Russia wants to change to adapt to the West. I don't think parts of Latin America want to change. I think they have their own culture that is less likely to be permeated, at least in the majority. And so this is really, to me, a pretty simple question to answer. Don't stop now. We've got
Okay, so yeah, that was a good video. I thought he was going to list like the countries to go to, but I think he somehow did, Russia, Serbia, but he didn't mention Africa. Maybe Africa might be a little bit extreme when it comes to how they avoid this culture, because they have countries who sentence people to death for just doing things like this. And also Nigeria is 14 years imprisonment for being gay, not even being woke, for being gay. So Africa might be a little bit extreme, but one thing about Africa is people don't really care. We don't do so much of, open public display of affection. So people don't really know about sexuality and about a lot of things, unless you come out to rub it on people's faces, and then people are concerned about it. But people don't really care. So I don't think there's been anybody who's been sentenced to 14 years imprisonment for being gay, but the law is there. So I don't know if it should be there, but the law is there. Anyways, let me know your thoughts on that video. I'm just telling you, I'm trying to sell Africa to you in case you want to, come to a country that doesn't have woke culture. Come to Africa. Nigeria, we welcome you with open arms. And thank me when you do. That being said, is the end of this one. Smash the like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and I'll see you on the next video. Have a wonderful day. Peace.